All righty. So today I have a fascinating guest. I'm already just like getting all this energetic affirmation that this conversation is just of the highest, of the highest information. And I'm going to be speaking with a guy who just came out with a book that I'm going to tell you right now, everybody, is like I want to say it's like the Cliff Notes to universal truth, to connection with yourself, to connection with source, and then you get to have all the other good stuff when we drop in and do that. So I want to welcome Brandon Beachum. Brandon, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for being here. Susan B. That's my mom, is Susan B. So I can remember this.
Well, so first of all, I want everybody to know that Brandon has a really great podcast called Positive Head Podcast. And if you haven't listened to him, I highly recommend you go and do that, because he's had some phenomenal guests, very similar to what I've done on my show, and with people, and a lot of the wisdom has been poured into your new book. And the book is called The Golden Key: Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance.
Yes. With the book, thank you for saying all that. I've been on a path of 25 years of deep exploration of the ultimate nature of reality, as I like to refer to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what I set out to do with the book. And the idea came to me in dramatic fashion in a dream of how I would approach it, and all kinds of synchronicities. And there's a bunch of stories in the book about it, including the cover art, etc. And the aim was to really take my 25 years of deep exploration and waxing poetic on 1,500 podcast episodes and talking to anyone who will listen about this stuff. How can I distill this down and make it as digestible as possible? And like you said, a Cliff Notes version. I want something, in this case, it ended up being about 100 pages to read, or just over 3 hours if you listen to the audiobook. And that was really the aim. It's like, I want to, have an offering that really sums up my perspectives on the ultimate nature of reality. And a lot of other thought leaders, I like to refer to myself as a thought leader DJ, mixing up and expanding on some of those ideas. And so that was the aim. And it's been quite the adventure so far, and very happy with how the ride has treated me.
Well, yeah, and get ready, because it's going to accelerate, I'm sure. So Brandon, the thing I noticed about your book is what you just said. It's a very small book, everybody. And there was another author in the 30s that wrote a book by a similar title, The Golden Key. And it was a very small book. Like
very, very small, like an essay.
Right. It was like 20 pages maybe, and it was tiny. And because I've studied that book, and then your book has taken and added to and gone beyond what was known almost 100 years ago, because of all the revelations of quantum physics that has connected us to the awareness that we are that divine spark or light, or however you want to label it, and that we're all connected.
Right.
So let's talk about that. Let's drop into the oneness of all.
Sure. Yeah. And I would just say quickly that the book you're referring to, or the short essay by Emmett Fox, I was really excited when I dreamed of the concept. I mean, I always knew I would write a book or books, and it was waiting until I felt the inspirational nudge to do it. And I had a dream on August 6th, 2020 was when it actually happened. And I, thought about, okay, the concept and the unique way I'm going to distribute the book and all of it. And I was excited about it. And then I was like, well, what would this book be called? And I thought, well, The Golden Key seems appropriate. I wonder if anyone's used that title. And I went and searched, and that's when I found Emmett Fox's work from 1931. And I instantly got chills when I read the description of it, because it was very similar to what was being sort of, revealed to me in the dream state, which is like, hey, let's make this playful, a gamified kind of thing. And there's that element to this book. And at the end, I invite people to play the golden game, as I call it. And so when I was reading Emmett Fox's description, it was like, don't take my word for it. I dare you to just try these ideas on for yourself and see. And it was like, oh my gosh, that's what I'm going to say. Like, and then it went on with that. I don't know if you read the story of the cover art is really fascinating.
No, I haven't gotten there yet, but.
Oh, I could share it later or now or what,
Well, you've got sacred geometry on here, plus some Celtic and Shamatic images, and which I'm just like, and then you had to say modern alchemy, and I was hooked.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll share with you real quick because it's just so fun. And I'm such a sucker for good stories and synchronicities and signs and that sort of thing. And so when I had the whole concept, I then went to my good friend, dear friend Vajra, who's one of the most incredible visionary artists on the planet, I would say. And I went to him and said, hey, Vajra, I had this dream, and the name, and I searched it, and I found this guy Emmett Fox, and then his other biggest work was published on my birthday, and I have all the synchronicity around. I have this crazy amount of synchronicity around my birthday. It's like a 15-minute story, but so I'm like, it's just magic, And Vajra, would you be willing to possibly create the cover art? And after I was done with my whole spiel, he was like, well, if you're done, it's my turn. Let me get my dream journal. And he pulls out his dream journal. He goes, a few months ago, I had a dream. I manage a property in LA, Venice Beach area called the Mystic Manor, kind of communal transformational hub. And he's like, I had a dream. I was at the Mystic Manor, and I was hunting for the key to everything.
Oh my.
And he went into his whole dream from months earlier. And my concern with asking him to do the cover art is I wanted to put the book out really quickly. Mm-hmm. And I know his artistic process is normally pretty lengthy. He's like the quintessential artist, So I'm like, he's probably not going to rush for me, And he's like, so after he reads his whole detailed dream to me from months earlier, he's like, so to answer your question, will I create the cover art for your book? I already started it months ago because I was so inspired by the dream I had at your property.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Cool? I got chills, Brandon. That's like, right? I love it the way when we're tuned in and tuned up and aligned, right? Then what you're calling a synchronicity, it's not. It's just guidance to, okay, now I go here and then I go there.
Right.
And everything falls into place without it being effort.
Yep, exactly. Just following those breadcrumbs, from spirit. And it became very crystal clear. That was my next step, was to go down this path. And so, there's, and him and I have some more pretty incredible story from years before that led to our friendship, which led to a lesson in trusting, and this whole thing. And he ended up taking the path of trust, which then led to our friendship, which then led to him meeting his wife on the first episode of my late night style show. And now they're married and, got married here. And it just like, it's such a cool thing to see when these paths unfold for us.
Yes. Yes.
Fashion.
And I'm hearing the word catalyst too, Brandon. Right. So I believe that many of us, all of us really, are catalysts for our own inner change. And then that ripples out into changing the course of humanity. But we have to become awake and aware, right? To be that catalyst, to be that. So how would you suggest people do that? Because I know that information's in your book too, right?
Yeah. Great question. How do people step into, unlocking their greatest and grandest self is really what I'm hearing. And you're right. It is going to involve catalyzing energy for self and rippling out for those around you. Gandhi said it well. He said, if you want to find yourself, lose yourself in the service of others.
Oh,
the reason that holds true, because there are no others. And there's a great meme. I wish I'd saved it. I saw a while back where it's like a bunch of people sitting around a big pot of stew, and they had really long spoons. And it was like, maybe it was like a video, and they were trying to feed themselves and they couldn't because the spoon was too long. And then they finally figured out, I can actually, what I can do is I can dip and feed the person across from me, and so everyone's sort of sharing and helping to feed each other. And so that is such a great analogy for what's happening with
right now.
us. Yeah. It's like you're going to, the first thing is really believing in your worth, and a lot of people get caught in these stories of I'm not good enough. I can't do what Susan does or Brandon does, or this person on my Instagram feed. Look how attractive they are. Whatever the story is of separation that
Right.
creates inferiority. It's actually, it's all about the story you tell around what's happening, right? Abracadabra translates to I create as I speak. We are
Yes.
spelling, we are casting a spell. Our words are our wands. So what I tell when I see something that I really want more of in my life,
Mhm.
instead of, oh my gosh, I could never do that. And look, he's got this, that, and the other. Instead, I say, out of all the things that could be showing up in my field in this moment, that is showing up because I'm such a close vibrational match. That
Yes.
which is like unto itself is drawn. Water seeks to find its own level. So if I'm seeing something that I admire, wow, it's getting closer. It's getting closer. Instead of that's the oneness perspective versus the separation perspective of, oh, they're over there and I'm over here and I could never have that. And abracadabra, you're creating it, And so that's the first thing is understanding that no one is more worthy than you are. Or ever has been. You are as worthy as anyone ever has been, could be, or will be. The universe itself, the physical universe, 14 billion-ish years of evolution to culminate into you in this moment, and you're going to question. I mean, literally, the atoms that made you up were created in the crucible of creation at the beginning of the known physical universe. They've lived out entire life cycles as another being, as a star. Young starhood, middle age, old age, a fiery death, as is fitting a star. Its guts strewn across the cosmos and reforming as you. Thousands of grandparents in the last couple hundred years. 400 years alone, it's like 2,000 plus grandparents you have. Think of the choice points, the hardships, the love loss, the challenges, all so you could be here now to experience reality, and you're going to question your worth and your value. You are worthy just by virtue of being
here.
Just being here. Anything from there's icing on the cake. So that's really the starting point. Knowing it's going to involve service in some way, shape, or form, because it's in giving that we receive, because there are no others. And if something feels aligned and doesn't feel like violative or being taken advantage of in some way, and someone is wanting, could use your assistance or help, always do it. You're going to find an opportunity to give away what you want for yourself to others. And when it checks those boxes, do it, because it's in giving that we receive.
Well, and what happens, what I've noticed, Brandon, in my life is that the more you give, the more it multiplies, right?
Yep.
So that the universe, which is like such a small word for what it is we're really talking about in this whole all one I-ness, but it just constantly wants to multiply whatever, and it does multiply the stuff that's not positive, right? But if we focus, like what you're talking about, of being of service to others and giving first, it comes back tenfold immediately. These are such old universal principles, you guys, that
that
have been around for eons, probably when we were all stardust, just floating around going, okay, what are we going to do now?
It's how it's designed, and once you start to understand the nature of the situation in which you find yourself, it's like, hey, if you're in a game and there's certain ways that things are designed, it helps to know the rules and the way things are set up. And this is fundamental is in giving that we receive. And that, you are a fractal, of source consciousness. It's like Rumi said, you aren't the drop separate from the ocean. The ocean is in the drop.
Exactly.
And once you start really feeling that, now you feel your worth. You feel, and it's inevitable that there's that thing for you that from this moment forward, that is the greatest and grandest version of you that wants to be realized, if you will meet it there,
Okay, so Brandon, let's move. So I'm seeing this infinity symbol, right? Or scalar wave, if you want, because we've just tapped on some of the spiritual components, but let's go into the science that you have in the book.
Sure.
about how it proves that we are all connected, and
Sure.
that what we do, that being that drop in the ocean and the ocean in the drop affects
Mm-hmm.
everything
Yeah.
and everyone. So let's do the scalar wave over to
Yeah.
here
Sure. Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
talk about how I want us to just tap on briefly the quantum physics of life, as well as, and these are all new concepts over the last century,
Yeah.
or even more recent, that we didn't have before, which is what is, I believe, and you tell me, Brandon, it's what is helping us to transmute and evolve at a rapid pace now, because many more people have the understanding of how everything
Yeah.
actually works, not the way we thought it was.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, what's great is science and spirituality are doing a dance right now that is just incredible, because, they're just, two sides of the same coin in a sense. And I think it was Nassim Haramein who said, all um, sort of magical things to us is just science we have yet to understand. Right.
Right.
But
Right.
science itself is rooted is magic that it exists. And so it's just like, the two sides of the same coin, depending on how you're looking at it. But yeah, I mean, the one thing is, I think it's always very grounding, pun intended, to know that you're stellar being, you're actually made of stars, as I mentioned, or this idea that, you know, um, we look at reality as a solid thing that's happening, but really what's going on under the hood is the particles, these atoms that make me up, are, when we zoom in, they're not solid at all. They're 99.9999% space. And the part of it we call solid are actually vibrations of energy. They're popping in and out of existence so quickly, kind of like a movie screen. It flickers so quickly, it appears, like it's one fluid thing, but it's really flickering very rapidly and fools the eye. And that's what's happening with us as beings. We are literally made of light, and we're flickering so quickly. And the particles, we don't know where they come from or where they go to, when they show up, but they show up intelligently and in an organized way that create this sort of illusion of solidity. But if you get, even when you get down to it, like touching something, that it's very convincing that I'm touching the desk right now, but really what I'm feeling is the repulsion between the atoms in my hands and the atoms in the desk, that are just kind of like magnets pushing each other away. And so you never actually touch anything. You're in a light show. It's obviously been programmed like a video game, very similar attributes. Oh, if you zoom in, it pixelates. Oh, hold on. It's been programmed. Oh, it's all made of light. Oh, what does the double slit experiment show in physics? Well, when the observer is watching, it's snapped into one place. When the observer is not watching, it's in a state of quantum superposition or possibilities.
Right.
Much like a video game.
I call it potential because it's activating and actualizing our human potential to comprehend that we are those beings of light.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
And I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Go
No,
ahead.
go ahead. Oh,
okay.
I was going to.
Okay, we have too much to say. You go.
So I was going to go on to mention a little bit about, simulation argument, and how this has become a thing that's pretty prevalent and popular now, even with some of the brightest minds on the planet. You have people like Elon Musk, saying, hey, 1 in a billions chance that we are in a base level reality as opposed to a simulation. And, a lot of this started really gaining ground in the early 2000s. A guy named Nick Bostrom from Oxford wrote a paper called Simulation Argument. And he basically postulated that, okay, there's 3 possibilities with a advanced civilization, or what he called post-human. And what he meant by post-human is a society that overcomes all the obstacles that would lead to its demise. And sort of like, they made it through the teenage years with the car keys, and so he said, look, there's 3 possibilities. A society evolves to the point where it's dies out before it achieves post-human status. It achieves two, it achieves post-human status, but then opts for low technology. Or three, it achieves post-human status and opts to continue to develop high technology. Well, what was interesting is then he did an algorithm to try and determine which was the most likely. What he determined is the achieving post-human and continuing to develop high technology was most likely. And what that points to is all it takes is one society to have done that and then create simulated ancestors, right? Like
Oh,
we're
wow.
already doing it. Yeah. So, if you think of it in those terms, like when our technology is already getting to the point now, we have like Sims video games and things where it's getting more and more and more real. Look at virtual reality. Well, imagine a society 1,000 years or 100,000 or 1,000,000 years older than us. They could create, infinite simulated ancestors. I mean, we could be on a little kid's shelf 500 years in the future, and this is Xbox 50, and all it takes is one of those base level realities to create many simulated versions of themselves, which is why you have people like Elon Musk saying, hey, more likely than not, this is a simulation. Now, that's a little frightening, I think, to some people, or it's a little unsettling, but I always say, look, that's not necessarily something to be tripped out by or feel scared of, like, oh, I'm not real. It's like, well, hold on. We are the creator and created rolled into one. So behind the simulation is our higher self, I would say, creating it for ourselves. And it's like, think of it like if you were going to be a jet fighter, a pilot, what would they do? Would they throw you in the cockpit and throw you up in the F-18 right away? And no, they would put you in a simulation first in an environment which is safer while you get your chops before you're in a bigger arena, a bigger game. And that's what I believe is happening here. You're in a simulation as you learn to get your chops of manifestation and creation in an environment that the stakes, although they appear high to us if we die, but I believe when you get to the other side, it's like Ram Dass said, oh, it's like taking off a tight shoe, like, oh, okay, that was like really just a simulation. And here I am back, I was learning things there.
Back into the oneness and the allness where all wisdom and knowledge is shared. So each of us, as we incarnate, this is my belief, as we incarnate on this particular plane, this particular planet, because there's many other planets where people are, or beings, but we're all here to evolve and learn together. And that goes back to your oneness and interacting and knowing that we're all connected. And when we each consciously wake up, if you will, or remember that we're here to learn, to play the game, to evolve and grow, then we can contribute to the bigger, greater, highest good in whatever it is we're here to contribute to. And that goes back to the giving part too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's, and it's like, as you, like a video game, as you level up and, you defeat the boss at the end of a level, you get to go to another level of experience where you have new gifts. Oh, great. I passed that test and now I get this new, jet suit or whatever. You get more toys and more ability to create and more tools for the next part of the journey. And so, that's what I believe we're all doing. We're somewhere in that journey. And it's an exciting time to be alive, especially when you get to the point in the journey where you actually start to have an understanding of what's going on. It's, it feels awfully good.
It's a lot more fun. And then the miracles or synchronicities or manifestation again multiplies because you're now in the joy of it, right?
Yep.
And therefore the acceptance of it. And oftentimes I know in my life, when I start getting a lot more joy or a lot more love coming at me because I've been living it, there's a part of me that goes, no, wait, a little too much. Let me just, whoa. So because your book is also about abundance, and it's not just abundance to have things and money. It's what we've been talking about, abundance of giving and loving and being and all that. But because it's about abundance, Brandon, when someone begins to say, oh, no, it's getting too good, what would you say to them? Okay, what would you say to me, Brandon? I'm asking.
It's getting too good. Interesting. It's like, can it ever get too good? I think here's the thing: whatever goodness is coming, and it's going to be rooted in there's the higher the branches, the deeper the roots.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for us to know who and what we are is not for the faint of heart. What God, source, higher self, the universe, whatever you want to call it, uh, is, it's it all.
Yes.
And you can't know that what you are unless you know that what you are not. So, it's understanding, taking a mature approach to understanding reality, and that it's not just all unicorns, rainbows, and butterflies. Yes, you can have those things, and actually, you can only really appreciate those things if you can only know that which you are, and what the root of what source is love. But that only means something if there's contrast. So you've never seen a great work of art without shadow in it, right? And
Exactly.
you are your soul's great work of art. So that shadow, the hardship, the challenge, that's it's a part of it. It's coming, right? The higher heights of uh too good. Well, you know what? You will the reality is exposure can breed indifference. I even where I'm here at the Mystic Manor, it's like people come in and they're like, oh my gosh, this place, wow, the visionary art, wow, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot, you're right, it's extraordinary, and so I see it every day. So it's an important piece to have, that contrast. So that's what I would say to someone who is feeling, you know, too good. I would say, hold on, now you're diminishing what the price you've paid to experience the goodness. And at the end of the day, don't be fooled. You know, everything that we really value, we're going to ultimately lose. Now, it may come back around. It will come back around in another form.
Yes.
Ultimately,
Yeah.
that's the silver lining. But it's all, at the end of the day, the cat's out of the bag. We're going to die. It's coming to an end. So really appreciating when it's there by having the proper perspective on the transient nature of your experience, I think is really important,
But
because
there's so many people that don't even know how to begin to understand that or accept it, or and I think that's the gift of this huge lockdown we've all gone through. And I'm praying it's the gift is a lot of people woke up and said, whoa, that daily ride on the 405 is not my jam anymore. And
yep, right,
putting on a suit or high heels to get to work is not what I want to do. I want to
yep,
be with, whatever, myself, my family, my dog. So,
yep.
okay, a couple of your keys are trust the mystery.
Mm.
Let's talk about that. And then I want to talk about loving what comes, because I think that's kind of going to tap on what we were
Yeah,
just.
yeah. Trusting the mystery. It's really, it's about coming into the knowing enough. It's like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. But
Right.
when you get to the point where I know enough to know life is happening for me, not to me, that's a big turning point, because now I don't necessarily have all the answers as to the why things are unfolding. I can have my own, and a lot of times people will say expectation is the enemy and desire is the enemy. I don't really agree with that. In its proper context,
Yes.
in place, I think it's fine. We're meant to have desire and expectation with a healthy sense of detachment. So learning to tell the story, okay, this is based off of my limited awareness and knowledge as my human, all data points taken into account and all experience taken into account. This is where I'd like to navigate to next. This is what I would like to experience next. And I also realize my human, to some degree, only sees so much of the board. and is playing checkers compared to my higher self, which is playing chess. And so, so once I start to trust the mystery, that, like a master, someone who embraces whatever shows up because they know no matter what, it's happening for them, not to them. And that actually their higher self helped to orchestrate that happening. So it takes away all the need to have it figured out and the ups and downs of, if this happens, I'm happy. If this happens, I'm sad. If this, you go from being reactive to proactive. I'm
Right.
going to show up into the situation. I'm going to set intentions. I'm going to set my sails in this direction based off of everything I know. But I also know I don't know a lot. And I know just enough to know I don't know much. And it's great when I saw it correctly and it pans out the way I intended to manifest. Awesome. Great. I did that. Oh, something totally different happened. Okay. I don't know. I may not know exactly why I'm getting this lump of coal yet, but I trust that there's a diamond behind it in disguise waiting for me to alchemize it. Right. This is the art of alchemy at its finest, transmuting things until, seeing things from the perspective of expanded higher self. What's the most loving way I could start to weave a story around this experience?
And I
And
love that you said the most loving way, because so many of us run our story and it's with anger, hurt,
yep,
shame, and
yep,
then get more of that. And to
yep,
move that anger, hurt, shame story into a place of detached awareness and love, that
yep,
I think is part of why we're here. Because I agree with you, the lump of coal, when I've been given the lump of coal, when I begin to just trust that there is something bigger working on my behalf, through me and for me and as me, then that lump of coal, I mean, I've seen it manifest several times in the last 10 years. And I'm like,
yeah,
wow, that's
wow. I couldn't have foreseen that that's where it was going to lead me, or
no,
that I
yeah,
needed that gift. I needed to experience what it was like to have a, accident, and then so I can help someone else who's having that same experience down the line. And have you ever heard the story of the Taoist farmer?
yes. But
Yeah.
you want to tell it really quick?
It's a great one. Yeah, I'll tell a quick version of it. So the Taoist farmer, of course, Taoism being the ancient philosophy that's very aligned with all these concepts we're talking about here today, if you don't know. So the Taoist farmer kind of thinks in these terms. One day his horse runs off, and his neighbors, who don't have the same sort of outlook and philosophical viewpoint, more definitely playing checkers, right? They come over and they say, oh my gosh, we see your horse ran off, and we know that your one horse you need to help to plow your fields, and without it, you're screwed. And the Taoist farmer, understanding everything's happening for him, not to him, and trusting the mystery, says, maybe so, maybe, who knows? The next day, the horse comes back, and a wild horse is following it. What do you know? Fortune, according to the neighbors, they come over and say, oh my gosh, we thought you were screwed, but now we see you have double the horsepower because the wild horse came back, and congratulations, you are so blessed. Taoist farmer, unattached, maybe so. Next day, his son, his only human helper, got on the wild horse to try and tame it, was thrown, broke a leg. And the neighbor saw this, came over and said, oh my gosh, we thought you were screwed when you lost your horse. Then we thought you were blessed. Now we know you're screwed because without your son to help you with your fields, you're done for. Taoist farmer's response, maybe so. Next day, the military comes around, gathering up all the young men in the village to take them off to be on the front lines in battle, sure to die. The farmer's son is of prime age. They come to gather him up and see him laid up in bed with a broken leg, and they pass him by. Neighbors come over and say, oh my gosh, we thought you were screwed. Then we thought you were blessed. Then we thought you were screwed. Now we know you're blessed. What does the Taoist farmer say? Maybe so.
So, yep. So that's a part, that is a good story about how to trust the mystery. And I know for lots of people, myself included, trusting is especially something that you can't touch or feel, like you talked about earlier, but trusting becomes a challenge at times, especially when things are getting wonky, or we feel like it's against us or they're against us. So what would you suggest people do in order to learn to trust more?
That's the great question, isn't it? It's like I started really understanding a lot of these concepts, 25 years ago. And it's one thing to understand them philosophically, and it's another to apply them when the going gets tough. Mike Tyson said it very well. He said, everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face. And
True.
so, that's where the work lies. It's getting up. You're going to fall. You're going to fall off the horse. Get up, dust yourself off, try again. And it's one of these things like going to the gym or doing something with repetition. You rewire new neural networks in your brain every time you take a situation that would have triggered you a certain way in the past,
Mhm.
but you start seeing it through that new light. Part of our evolution, it's a 2-step forward, 1 step back kind of shuffle. It's like a spiral the way we're evolving, and we circle back on things that we think we'd already worked through for further, deeper release. We're like layers of an onion, in our being. So being gentle with yourself, not beating yourself up too bad when you fall off. Oh my gosh, I just completely lost my cool and reacted and yelled and anger, and I failed that, test, let's say. For me, I think, okay, well, instead of beating myself up, loving myself here, what would love do now? Right. Is always. And then, hey, guess what? The universe is no shortage. It's got all the no time and eternity to give you another opportunity to try again. And,
Over and
I
over.
like to say, smooth seas never made for a skilled sailor, and we all came to be skilled sailors. So you're going to get your opportunity. Beating yourself up for falling short is about the worst thing you can do,
Yeah, yeah.
because it's part of the dance.
So this leads into loving what comes then. Okay?
Yeah.
Because loving what comes also you have to go hand in hand with trusting,
Mhm.
and then loving, welcoming. I just listened to a talk about welcoming anything that comes at you, welcoming
Yep.
it, whether you want to label it good, bad, ugly, stinky,
Yep.
happy. But so loving what comes. So just explain to everybody briefly how you can do that.
Yeah, it's very closely tied to trusting the mystery, right? It's like I at the end of the day, what I believe is going on is source, God, higher self, the universe, consciousness, whatever you want to call it. It is at its core, it is love. That's what it is. But if it's all one, it's all the same stuff, it's all one, and it's love, there's there's no contrast for it to know itself, right? It becomes meaningless, right? Put
Mhm.
me in an infinitely white room and then put one black speck, and now I have some contrast to, otherwise I just lose all understanding of what is going on. And so that's what I believe that's the dance God is doing with herself. This is how God gods, by experiencing that which she's not, so that she can experience that which is, more fully, and it means something. And so once you understand that everything is at the core level playing out that experience, then it naturally takes you to a place of, oh, well, I can either kick and scream throughout this process eternally, or I can learn to trust it. And the question is always, can I be the space for this? Whatever arises, love that. Can I do that? Can I be the space for this? Can I be love now in the spite of this, in the face of this? And when it's really challenging, that's when the growth comes.
That
And
is
all of a sudden you become more.
yeah.
All of a sudden you're more of what your higher self is. And all of a sudden it's the level up on the video game. And so you're going to get the opportunity. And once you understand that it's all about learning to love what arises and love what comes, then you're a little more prepared. When you get hit in the face, oh, hold on. Nope, no. I'm not going to no anger here. Okay, what would love do? And love is so powerful. It dissolves everything that sort of opposes it ultimately. And then you realize, oh, this is the actual superpower, by surrendering to the process and keeping my heart open no matter what. I talk about in that chapter, the book, The Untethered Soul by Michael
Oh,
Singer.
yep. Just love Michael Singer.
Incredible.
Yep.
It's so good. And he talks about, where having your heart open. It's like most of us, we have this Ferrari of a vehicle, and we're stopping and starting, all the time, smashing the gas, smashing the brakes, smashing. If I smell cookies like my grandmother made when I was a kid and it's a good memory, my heart opens. If I smell something that reminds me of an awful memory, at the orphanage or whatever, then my heart closes. If you say this to me, you compliment my eyes, my heart opens. If you say my shirt's weird, my heart closes. It's like, but meanwhile, that heart is not just a physical valve, it's a spiritual valve. That's all of our chi, life force from source, is coming through the heart center. So once you understand that, it doesn't make any sense to ever let an external event cause me to turn off the tap of chi, right? Of life force. So the only game in town becomes, how do I keep the faucet always open so it's overflowing from me regardless of external circumstances? And this is you kind of start doing it for, I call it the good kind of selfish. Like, hey, the more I can overflow, the more it's going to flow into you, the more everyone wins. And that all comes from learning to love what comes.
And that goes right back to what we were talking about at the beginning of giving more than you think you can, and connecting more than you think you can. And it helps you stay open-hearted, and it helps you ground in love. So Brandon, thank you. Thank you for writing the book, The Golden Key, Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. Thank you. I'm telling you guys, this is a must-have in your library, and you can read it one paragraph at a time. Read the paragraph or the little mini chapters in the chapter. Sit with it, because it's almost like Brandon, you gathered so much information and put it in this itty bitty book. And I really appreciate it. So where can people get the book, and also where can people go to listen to your podcast?
Yeah. So the podcast is called Positive Head, and you can find the Positive Head podcast anywhere that you would get a podcast, all the different platforms and podcast apps, and, Spotify and Apple, et cetera, et cetera. So also I have a late night style show that I called Optimistic, spelled like MYSTIC, Optimistic.
I love
Go to optimistic.tv. I have a few episodes of that I've released, and there's more to come. And then the book, part of what was shown to me in the dream is to gift it to people. I feel like it's the best way I can help to wake up the planet. And once again, it's a good kind of selfish. The more people I can help, the more that energy comes back to me, because I'm always doing it to self. So if you go to goldenkey.gift,
that's
GIFT.
Gift. Uh-huh.
Yep. And if you use the golden key code at checkout, Susan B, you can get the audio and or ebook as a gift.
Okay. Thank you for that. I so appreciate that. And Brandon, thank you for all the good work you've been doing, and I know continue to do. I just thank you for being one of those illumined lights that's just shining so bright. So thank you very much.
Well, I am a reflection of you, and so thank you for creating me in this image, and vice versa. You are a beautiful reflection, and all of you listening as well. You wouldn't be here hearing this conversation if we weren't very close soul family. And I just want to say congratulations. You're doing it. The journey is the goal. Go easy on yourself. What would be loving to yourself most of all, most importantly, because if you're beating yourself up, you're just not understanding how much you deserve love. And every moment is another chance to turn it around, all around anyway. There is no past. Show it to me. You can show me a picture. It wouldn't even like you remember it. The future is never going to show like you imagine it either. And now you are it. You are doing it. And congratulations.
Brandon Beachum, thank you so much. Thank you. And so I'm just going to end with, and so it is, namaste.
Namaste.